How early are we?
7 minutes.
All right, 7 minutes.
We'll give it like a minute.
All right, who do we got online right now?
Not much.
Okay. This is like going to be a little surprise for everybody that we're just a little early on it. I need a prop to have in my hand.
We'll edit this part out.
It's live.
I think I can edit it once I upload it though, or like make it rewatchable.
Okay.
We'll
Whatever
see.
you say, man. You're the tech guy.
Shall see.
Mm-hmm. Which should be a topic we talk about like
Beforehand
live stream.
Well, we could just talk like briefly, like we planned to talk about, just like music.
Okay. It's guitar, right? What's up with that?
What have you been listening to lately?
On the way here, I was listening to the entirety of The Replacements' "Let It Be." Like some people say, it's like their best album, with hits like "Gary's Got a Boner," "Fucking Androgynous." Just yeah, dude, it's like that's one of the best ones of like love songs that are like really heartfelt. But then you got songs like "Gary's Got a Boner," and it's awesome. Okay, who do we have?
My eyes. I need glasses.
Marlon Edwards.
How's
it going, man?
All right, I guess we can just start talking then.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, same question to you. What's been on your playlist this week?
I've been on, like, as I've told you, for the past, 2 months, I've just been on a true blues kick.
Mm.
You know, I can name 1,000 names right now that I've been listening to, but really, that's kind of all I've been listening to lately. I also been listening to a lot of Fats Domino.
Hells yeah.
I really like Fats Domino. So,
dude, yeah. Fucking didn't Elvis call him like one of like the true king of rock and roll? Like that's a real quote by him.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Fucking like that dude was the OG in such a way that even I think he just considered himself a blues artist that just had that natural swing.
More like R&B, right?
Yeah, very true. That's a better way to say it. Back when it really was just like blues with more of a rhythm to it.
To me, like listening to Fats Domino song, it's like, how do you not sing along?
Yes. Ain't that a shame?
Even at work, when I'm like listening to it in my headphones, I can't help myself but start like singing along to it like an idiot. But but really, like, I don't know. I've been trying to listen to a lot of albums that
We got a Ween fan. Thank you, man. I was thinking that too when we made that reference as well, dude. I'm glad somebody caught that. Sorry to interrupt.
No, what was I even saying? Mm-hmm. Oh, I've been trying to like listen to like albums that I've been listening to my whole life recently, and I don't know. I've gotten stale on a lot of stuff that like this is gonna hurt your feelings a little bit. Yeah. But you know what band I was listening to the other day where I was like, I've had enough of this band. Can.
So if you overindulge them, I can totally understand that. But they're one of those bands.
I was overindulging for sure.
Nobody like that's one of those bands that every like record store guy and like record nerd will say like you gotta listen to more Can, you gotta listen to more Noi. Like that's the band that like everybody's trying to get you to listen to. But when you're in the know and you like say like, all right, time to put on the good shit, and you listen to it too much, just like done. I don't need it this bad. Like you just don't. But if you want like then you got two versions of Can, which is the original singer Mooney, and then you go into Dama, which it's like two different bands. Like they're very bluesy in the first album, which if you want to try that stuff out for a difference.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. You know what's another band that like is almost the same way where you say like, oh, like it's kind of like a trope where people are like, oh, bro, you ever listen to Can? Like, you listen to Can? This is like another band like that, but I still have never reached the point where I'm like, oh, enough. Just Neutral Milk Hotel.
Sure.
That's one of those bands where everyone's like, dude, you want some obscure music? You got to listen to it.
It's been a meme at this point.
Yeah, exactly. But like, it's the same way, but I can listen to that album over and over, and I still have never gotten bored of it.
You want to know something? The first person that ever showed me them, specifically showed them to me, I'm not kidding, his opening line was, you want to hear the worst shit ever? Like, and that's how I got into them, was this guy, he thought it was the worst, and it was the seminal In the Airplane Over the Sea, saying like, oh, dude, you're going to hate this. And that's mostly because we were laughing at that era's version of very overindulgent, screamy folk punk that we thought was very funny, which a lot of those songs have the feel of, but not really, because, you know.
It's almost like if if they went like a step further, that album would have been that.
If because they're very mindful on that album to make it artful. They have a clear idea going forward with it.
What do you think? I agree, because it's like it's almost. What distinguishes that fine line? Like what?
Planning, I would say, is like.
You think so?
I think they went into that with a very clear psychedelic mode, and nobody's ever done that where it's very folk punky, but they wanted it to be very surreal, dreamlike, and to utilize lo-fi equipment as well. And they've been very lo-fi before that, but they wanted to use it in a very psychedelic way, almost in a Beach Boys way.
You know, I've never thought about the recording of like the actual recording aspect of that album. It's been like a long time since I've actually listened to it. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned lo-fi, and I don't remember it being that lo-fi.
It's not as other stuff.
I know, yeah, compared to their
in Avery Island and all the stuff previous.
That's much more. That's actually be interested to learn about.
Oh shoot, we got an Ariel Pink fan, dude. Yes.
Oh, you're talking to the right guy,
dude. I could talk about Ariel Pink forever, dude. I literally just bought like a signed album from his website.
Oh, really?
Hang on my wall. I swear to God.
That's cool.
Yeah, dude. Fucking like, if you got any Ariel Pink questions, I could talk about him forever. But shoot, I hate to get distracted from the Neutral Milk Hotel.
No, dude, we're on to the next topic. I'm over Neutral Milk Hotel.
Thoughts on his genius? Man, the stuff that man can do with just an 8-track, starting with his first album, just the Doldrums. I mean, he literally made that first album and this is so like stupid if you think about it. He said he made that album specifically as like a thesis project for a college art class. So it's not even like a visual thing he made for that class. And he just made all of these songs, and he says he name checks several like teachers and students in that album. And it's so funny, and you hear him talk about it, and like all the drum sounds are just his mouth and like little keyboards.
That's like very Sid.
Yes, it is. It's very Sid. He says he loves Sid Barrett, and it's a giant influence.
I've never been able to get like I've listened to Ariel Pink's albums like once through at least for all the major ones at least, and I've not like I didn't dislike it, but I've never caught that bug where I was like, oh, I need to keep listening to this over and over. I don't know what is it for me that I can't like. It's not like I super like. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
it might be a giant wall of lo-fi because he has stuck in all of his like first, I want to say maybe 8 albums. He stuck to the exact same recording process of just having an 8-track that just in his house. He said he was living in like a hippie ashram, just like smoking weed every single day, like not paying rent and stuff. And he said his only life was just like, I want to make cassette albums. And he just did that nonstop, and he made 8 full ones using just an 8-track, his mouth, and like a little keyboard, like just like that. So it's like the product of it is so lo-fi, is almost like that wall of static and noise can kind of cloud things up, and you almost have to listen past it.
That's definitely not it for me because I like the aesthetic for sure. I think it's interesting, like what you're saying about him, like pretty much like locking himself away. That's pretty much like when I was working towards my album, right? That was like a 4-year process. I was literally obsessed where I like every ounce of like free time. I was like, this is what I need to do. Like just like you're saying, he was like, I need to do this. This is what I'm gonna do. Obviously, it took a way longer time for me, just because I wanted the final product to be, like a professional product, like I had. And like, I only knew how to play drums, obviously, when I first had that idea. But, there's something like, I think when an artist, now I'm taking myself out of it because the ego part of that's just, I'm no longer part of that. But like when an artist really dedicates themselves to a specific project, because like there's plenty of artists that it's almost becoming, what am I trying to say here? It's not they don't have the time or the passion where they're not like 100% dedicated to it.
Sure.
But it's still like they're fantastic musicians, right?
Yeah.
But then Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, sorry, it's not having the time to it. Like, we're two guys with full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Like, and when we make time to it, it's like you specifically want to like put your brain in the exact opposite mode from like whatever your job is. That like, okay, we're going into full creative mode to like let as many creative ideas fly that could make the product we're making fun.
Yeah.
That just like, and sometimes you can't have that during the day, so you got to like go somewhere else with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely it's hard.
No problem, bud.
It's definitely hard. Thoughts on BP1W? I don't know what that is. Boss pedal what? What's the 1W?
Dude, you're asking the wrong person for me.
What's the 1W? Clearly, I don't have thoughts on it.
I was gonna say any tech questions, just ask Mario because he's
I'm not good with
that.
guitar pedals. I don't really. I don't have much opinion on gear other than the things I own. Really?
No, you've made pedals in the past.
Yeah, I made a treble booster. That's like a really simple pedal. Space Echo preamp. Interesting. Yeah, I have no experience with that, but I imagine it's probably pretty fun if it's a Space and CE1 preamp.
I'm gonna field all tech questions to Mario because that's his specialty.
I feel like you probably feel the same way, but when it comes to my guitar, I almost exclusively like just plugging straight to the amp.
You know, I think we haven't talked about this much, but literally I've only got that way just by playing with you. Before that, I've loved at least like a drop of distortion.
Oh, really?
It. Yeah, because I think when we started doing Pomelo stuff, I was on an enormous Dead Milkman kick.
Yeah.
And they made it a part of them that they never wanted to use pedals. They were the cleanest punk band like for tone ever.
Yeah, like honestly, like my first real guitar amp was the Twin. Like, how do you not love that sound, but just straight? So like, I never really, I bought like a big muff. I have like a delay pedal. I had the treble booster I use more than anything, just for like a little overdrive. But like the fuzz, like honestly, to me, doesn't sound that great on a Twin.
No, it's almost like it's so clean that to add anything else kind of feels like an insult to it.
Yeah, it feels like the waste.
Yes,
like a waste.
Very true.
But the Valve Junior, that's fun with a fuzz.
Oh, it's so good. Even without the fuzz, because the Valve Junior is just so natural.
There's so much range, too. Like, you could really get a very wide range of sound with just the volume.
Yeah, absolutely.
The gain control.
Mm-hmm.
How's the... I forgot you just bought one.
Yeah.
We should you should bring it over so we can have both playing.
We'll it.
How are the real preamps for the Space Echo? They are so... The headroom on the Space Echo preamp is so low that it's like it's impossible. Like you're moving like the gain knob to try to get the right levels on the VU meter, and it's either like you hear nothing at all and a bunch of hiss, or you're just getting a lot of peak hits. But it still winds up sounding good. Like there's a lot of saturation on a Space Echo, both from the preamp perspective and also the tape perspective. And I haven't. The tape you use in that is like a self-lubricating tape. It's not like regular tape. So you don't have to clean it as often. But regardless, I haven't cleaned those heads in probably like 3 years because I would have to like take apart part of my setup to get to the top of it. So I've just been like fucking dealing with it. Excuse my language. I really should do that. But I really don't use the Space Echo that much.
Not as much as you used
Honestly,
to.
Yeah, because it's like part of it is like in my head, I hate leaving it running all the time and having the tape constantly go across the head. So I try to only use it on my final mix downs if I'm going to use it. Mm-hmm. So because of that, when I'm experimenting and like mixing down our songs, like I'm not.
This guy still has a house phone, doesn't he?
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, you want me to still keep talking about the Space Echo that I have like I have no experience using.
Please don't call here. Thank you. It was a telemarketer, but
yeah, see that.
Basically, what was I saying
about the Space Echo? And,
yeah, because of that, because I'm like, I'll wait till the last mix down to use it, or the last couple at least practice runs. I'm not experimenting with it. I just use my reverb. Mm-hmm. So it's like that's why I don't really use it that much. But
yeah, very true. And like, we don't overindulge, I would say, too much that doesn't require it with any of our songs. Like Space Echo, like, can you even, like, what's the last song we used the Space Echo with?
I really only use it for effects. Like, well, that's not true. When I want a slapback delay, I use that.
Okay.
So, like, the last time we used it was probably the Soprano song. Because we wanted the Beastie Boys slapback delay. So
very true.
That was perfect for that, which is probably what they used in the studio.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right.
But what was I going to say? I don't really remember. But also, like, the acoustics in here don't lend themselves well to using a delay because there's so much reflection. So I've always felt like our mixes are always so busy anyway, basically, is what I'm trying to say. That, like, usually a delay just makes it even more messier. So I really only use it for vocal effects, honestly.
Are we using the Space Echo on the current project we're cooking up? I don't think we're going to discuss what we're exactly making with our friend Tim.
That's definitely going to be using the Space Echo.
Okay.
At least for overdubs, but most likely live mix down as well.
You were saying, like, we have a messy mix sometimes, and that's probably, at least with projects you and me have worked on together, maybe the most complicated mix of sounds that, like,
there's a lot going on. I'm excited for people to listen to that.
I think at the moment we're gonna keep that a secret until it comes out, because it's gonna be I would say quite a big departure from what we're usually making, like with the Pomelos and stuff. It's a newer project,
at least until that part of that project is done. I don't want to say too much, especially since, like, Tim's not here. So
yeah, exactly. And he's the mastermind.
I think if you guys are a fan of my work and Alex's work and the stuff we've done together, you're really gonna like that project when it's done. Yeah,
it's such. I can't stress that enough. It is a very large departure from what we have done in the past. It's not metal. It's
definitely different from stuff we've done. I would say it's in the same vein as, like,
it's weird.
Frankenstein of my type of output.
Yes, it is. It's very. I don't even want to talk about that.
Let me just read. Do you do your own analog repairs, or you got a guy for that? There ain't no more reliable people anymore to bring your electronics to, unless you know someone personally. That market for a business is gone. So the people that do that, it's really hard to come by people. You have to learn how to do it yourself. So I've been doing all my repairs myself. It's extremely frustrating, and as I tell you all the time, I am constantly dealing with issues, and it's mostly because basically I can't access the back of these machines the way I have it up in this small room against this wall, and because of that, the wires they break just sitting there. So it's like I have issues all the time. If you need a guy, let me know. Yeah, you can email me. What other questions we got? Parody rap metal trio incoming. That's not far off.
See, well, it's definitely not. I'll say it's not rap, but it's not even like it's not. The concept behind it will be a little funny, but I don't think it's not comedy though.
It's more camp than funny.
Camp is a great way to put it.
Yeah,
it's very camp. It's going to be for what we're looking at right now. It's going to be an extensive project for the process of getting
it would be nice to finish
there.
That one song for Halloween, but
yeah, if we can convince Tim to, like, really because that was everything we did the last time we saw him was, like, at least for that one song, and we're kind of done with that.
Yeah, it's like a really intricate song.
This one I would love to release what we just did on cassette. Yeah. That would be fantastic. I think it would be the most perfect medium for what
there's a guy his label is called the Collection Center, and he put out, excuse me, oh my god, I'm burping up booze. He put out my album on cassette. That's one of the cassettes I had.
Oh, you had a guy do that? I thought it was all you.
Well, I tried to do it myself, but cassettes are just I don't even want to get into cassettes right now, but he offered it to me, and I was like, yeah, I would be honored, and that was awesome. He wound up taking 50 copies for himself. He gave me 50 copies. I'm all out of my copies, but people can still buy it through. If you go to his Bandcamp, they're still on there of my copies. If anyone wants a copy.
Okay, you taught me something.
Still playing the Gretsch. Yeah.
It's right over there. Right over there.
It is. Screen. That guitar is fun.
Dude, it's so good, man. Like, I'm so jealous you have that thing. It's one of the smoothest playing things with just like a natural acousticness to it. It's just so tasty. Like I ask them like if we're trying to like record anything with a little bit of extra reverb on it, it's like I always have to go with the Gretsch. It's the only way to go. Not even like the Silvertone I usually use, just like I always gravitate towards it more.
It's so interesting, like having a different guitar in your hand. You'll come up with completely different parts.
Absolutely.
Songs. It's like it's crazy how much of a difference that makes when it's the same exact instrument, just a different tone, right?
It's so true. Dude, musicians have been saying that for hundreds of years, just like certain songs come out of certain guitars. It's like, that sounds corny as hell, but it's so true. It's so, so true.
Can you imagine like Willie Nelson and Trigger? Like,
yeah, I was just thinking that exact same thing when we were talking about.
Can you imagine seeing him with another guitar? He'd probably be like, "What the fuck? Like, what is this, bro?"
It's just something like, imagine him like with a modern like Jackson or like a BC Rich or something. That'd be the funniest thing ever if Willie Nelson came out with like a BC Rich Warlock or something.
I was at I wish I've been trying to make that happen. I've not been successful at making that happen. That is at least through means that are not self-funded.
It's pricey. It's always like
out of principle, I tried to get someone to press at least a limited number of copies, but that has not been fruitful. I've also haven't really been putting that much effort as I should be into that. What were we just talking about? Because I was going to say something.
We were just starting with guitars, and where were we going from that?
I don't fucking remember. Oh, I picked up. It was like an entry level. I think an Ibanez. Yeah, it was an Ibanez. I picked up this entry level at my girlfriend's house. Her electric guitar. I couldn't believe the quality of this guitar. Like, it was amazing. I was like, this probably costs like less than $200, and the build quality. Put it this way, she probably hasn't touched it in years. I took it out of its bag in the basement where temperatures are just fluctuating all over the place, hot, cold, and it was still in tune.
Nice.
I was like, wow, like that's really impressive.
I will say, I'm not a fan of like the bodies on Ibanez's. They have one of the smoothest necks.
They definitely have that look.
They got a nice like. You can wrap your whole hand around that neck, and it's so easy. And just like, dude, it's so like just playable. That's the best way I can say it. It's the most playable.
Would pay big money to see Willie play a Warlock.
Oh, dude, right? Wouldn't that be great? Of like, by the way, it's total departure. R.I.P. Chris Christopherson. Just like Willie's the last highwayman right now. And it's just a fucking shame. Just like maybe he should just like whip out like some BC Riches, some Jacksons, some ESPs, and just like fucking like go on a whole
like right before he dies.
Yeah, just like throw Trigger right on a fire. Just like he's got to be buried with that thing, right? Just like
no, he would have to get buried with it.
Either that, or he just sells it for a lot of money and go to a good charity and just like
that'd be nice.
Make that his last.
Well, actually, I mean, like planet. Even like a museum or like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like that's something like that'd be. You know, it's something I really didn't appreciate or didn't have the time to appreciate the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I was like with my family, my ex-girlfriend at the time. Like we were like more or less rushing through because like my mom didn't give a fuck. I mean, she cared a little bit, obviously.
Yeah, she's got to find at least one.
Yeah, thing no. My mom was. Don't get me wrong, my mom was liking it, but the downstairs with all the blues stuff. That's like some of the stuff they have there is like literally like the equivalent of going to the MoMA or Museum of Modern or the fucking
Metropolitan.
It's like wow, like they fucking have this. Like this is so fucking cool.
Yeah,
and I didn't have time to like appreciate it.
I'm sure. Like, do they have stuff from like Robert Johnson days or like that kind of like?
You've never been?
To the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yeah,
never,
dude.
I've never been to Ohio,
dude. It's worth it. If
hell
I would say,
I want to go. Really,
just
bad.
a once in a lifetime thing. You just go once. You're like, I've done it.
Of course,
the stuff they have. I thought you knew. The stuff
I've
they
seen
have,
videos and stuff.
The stuff they have on the first floor is all like early blues, folk, R&B, all like the predominantly like Black America, like 1920s, 30s, 40s. Some of the guitars they have is like it was awesome for sure.
Dude, I'm so jealous. I really want to visit in Mississippi the Blues Museum, National Blues Museum down there. It's always a trial. Like I want to make that trip, but like then they say like, look, if you go there, that's fun and it's fun to see. But then you're like, you're in Mississippi, and like what else after the museum as far as like stuff to do?
Yeah,
like,
I don't know much
no
about...
offense to anyone from Mississippi, by the way. I feel like we're missing some questions, by the way. I think we're getting on tangents. And Epiphone casinos are awesome.
Any thoughts about the Joe Meek gear? I really enjoy my 3Q and dread the day that it fails. That's interesting you say that. I've never tried any Joe Meek gear. I see a lot of it online, and other than the reason that I don't like how the front faceplate looks on them, that's the reason I haven't bought them, which I know is like a completely stupid reason. But if you're saying, everyone says they sound great, so like I probably should try one out. I haven't bought a piece of gear in a long time.
Yeah, I think we're on like a little fatigue right now, me and Mario. We're just like, every musician has this. We're just like, you get that hunger for like new stuff because you want to produce new sounds and like that are unable to come out of certain instruments you have already. Yeah. So you go on that little buying spree and credit plans.
Well, it's definitely like that for me for certain things like guitars. Like there's no reason for me to buy a guitar.
No reason,
no bass. I need a piano. But for gear, there's a lot of things that I would really like to buy and that I think would benefit my workflow greatly, but I just haven't had the spending money to just put down fucking thousands of dollars buying shit. Yeah, so exactly. It's like
you gotta put a cap on yourself. You just
I obviously need to eat food, so yes. We make decisions.
And it's also like once you buy it, you have to think to yourself, can I utilize this to its fullest extent that I can get out of it? And not make the one thing that I already had envisioned in my mind when I was going to buy this. Yeah. It's like, I can do this thing with it, and then put it away for a long time. Like, no, you got to force yourself to like squeeze newer things out of it.
But it's also like at the same time, it's like, sure, things would make my life easier. Would they necessarily make them sound better? I kind of have my doubts. I know it's like really easy to get sucked into the money hole of like, getting this better gear is going to make me sound better, but I've discussed in my videos 1,000 times. I think most of the limitations, at least to the sound quality of my recordings, come to one, to this board, and two, just more importantly, the acoustics in this room and that room are just terrible. So it's like me buying gear because I'm going to say it's going to sound better. I don't think it's going to get. I don't even think you're going to be able to notice. I think it'll just be more out of makes my workflow a little quicker. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, you have to weigh that. It's like if my product's not going to sound better. Do I really need to spend $1,000 on a compressor? Probably not. Okay. Joe Meek, my understanding is that the manufacturing moved from Britain to China at some point and the sound changed. Well, yeah, that's obvious. I'm certain the Britain manufacturing and tolerances were much better, and probably the quality control was also much better. You're going to see that with literally every product, not even audio electronics. That's just going to happen. What do you record bass with more often, mic or direct? So that's really,
direct with us.
That's interesting because also I don't want to forget this message.
That looks like a cool museum. So, I have to look that up. That sounds incredibly fascinating because like both me and him are at least like electric guitar nerds. Like, we'll talk about like the kind of things we can get out of electric guitars like, quite often.
Yeah.
So that sounds really fascinating. I got to see a video on that.
What were we just talking about?
Joe Meek's gear or direct in with the bass.
Oh, direct in with the bass. Yeah. So. Usually, like when I first, up until very recently, I should say, I never liked a DI bass sound. I could never get it to make it work. To me, it always sounded so flat, so I always mic'd it up. Mm-hmm. And I think it was only when we started recording with Tim, and it was all three of us in a room, and I wanted some separation in his guitar amp microphone from the bass. I think that was the first song in a while that I DI'd. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of just kept following through with it, and I've been really not liking it. Bass to me is like it's the sound I get is either extremely bad or good. To me, it's like it's either not working. I need to change it immediately, or I like it. So, Go ahead.
I was gonna say now you would have more knowledge of this as a drum guy. For me, when I record my own stuff, I feel like it's the thing that peaks the most is my bass because I'm trying to not get it so flat, and it peaks more when I try to mess with it and fiddle with it a little bit more. I feel like I'm poking out.
Sorry.
Nah, you're good. But yeah, for me it is. I know like you recording drums, I'm sure that's a giant like hassle with you trying to make it not peak. But for me in bass, that's the biggest one with me.
Yeah, your bass in particular, which
the P bass,
the P bass you have. Really hard. Yeah, the volume outputs on those pickups are so strong, and you're
Yes.
a heavy plucker.
I am.
So it's
I really
impossible to get. No matter what I do, I can't get the peak. That's why I always ask you to
turn it.
pick up another.
Put the tone down. Play the Hofner.
It definitely helps when you put the volume down on that bass. But I was gonna mention this as well. I tried this bass on DI and I fell in love. This bass, this is the bass.
So you can put it on anything and it just melds with whatever you're playing.
Yeah.
With.
This was a gift to me, and this I love this thing. This is a great bass. I got a bass 6 recently, and dude, that's what I've been telling you to buy.
Yes,
is it not?
Mario's told me for many years that I need one of those bass 6s. Now predominantly produced by Squier. I think maybe Fender makes one model, but Squier is the main producer of the bass 6s. They're so much fun.
Yeah,
we played our first one like a year ago. Right.
Where was that? You played it?
We were together in our buddy's house at his little studio.
Oh, right.
And we were playing that, and it was so much fun. You can make a lot of like doomy, Sabbathy stuff. Just like with that, I know that's not the main intention.
Yeah,
Paul McCartney likes it. The Cure loves it. There's a lot of stuff.
The reason I keep pushing him to buy one is when we do a duo setup with me on drums. You know, he's usually either has a bass on him or guitar on him. Mm-hmm. And every time it's like, man, it's missing one or the other. And obviously that's like the
right.
perfect.
Playing chords on that thing is the funnest thing on the planet. It's so rich. Your whole body shakes when you just strum that thing. It's so good. It just like makes a nice rumble. And it's addictive. But yeah, I'm always just like, it's one of those kind of things where just like you could do a lot with it. But then I don't know. I guess I'm just finicky with just buying one because I have too many basses already.
This is, because I think someone asked, what is it? This is a Hofner Duo Jet? No, that's a Gretsch guitar. What is it?
A Duo Jet is a Gretsch, but I wouldn't know Hofner. I'm not well versed on Hofner.
Damn, I can't remember the name of this bass. It's not on it. Hofner what?
Is it right there on the back of the head?
No, it's not. You would think you would have the name of the bass on it.
If anyone knows, if anyone can shout it out, but
I'm being dumb and I'm forgetting it. Oh my god, I'm knocking stuff down.
For as long as I've known you, you've said you've wanted Hofner specifically. I remember, to get a bass. You've always had the Tysko. I remember you've said it a while, and specific Hofners with flat wound strings. I
probably said that in the beginning because I was like, I want to be like Paul McCartney. Because I don't remember saying that, so that's funny you say that.
I don't know. It just stuck out in my head. More so because I don't think I've ever met specifically a younger person.
You're jogging my memory, and I do remember thinking that. Yeah. Now you mention it, and it was when I was like just learning how to play guitar.
It's a great bass for like the thumping rhythm more than any other bass because it's like that's what it's more meant for.
I just think it's extremely versatile. You could really get between the two pickups and the combination of the two a really wide variety of sounds. So like whenever we're trying to come up with a part for one of our songs and we're not really sure, or like my song, whatever song I'm working on, and we're trying to come up with a bass part, I think that's a great guitar to try to come up with a bass part because you could try multiple sounds, and if you get something that you like, you could always go, oh, this might sound better on the jazz bass, or it might sound better on that bass, but you'll at least know which direction you want to go in with that guitar.
Very true. It's kind of the perfect studio instrument for anything. It's almost like, yes, you can do a lot live, but like for studio, you can't go wrong.
I need to go make myself another drink.
I'm still doing pretty good. You want to have another drink?
I do, but I'm trying not to leave the live stream.
No, don't do that. We're already a half hour. That's pretty good.
Yeah, we were going to talk about our songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, obviously, for everyone watching, please send us questions, and we'd be glad to answer.
Absolutely.
But also, like when me and him were like prepping for this, I wanted to talk about me and his songwriting because I think it's like, from my perspective, really interesting. The comparisons between writing alone and recording alone versus writing and recording with someone versus another whole band. Because like I have plenty of things to say about, the Growling Hounds. So
sure, Growling Hounds.
Keep the conversation going for a second.
Well, I was saying to Mario before we started the live stream, I don't think that me and him have ever once deviated from the way that we have really written together, which has always been that I've sent him. Oh shit! You dropped shit.
Oh my god, that was on camera.
Oh boy. I've always sent him a riff or a bass line and just saying, like, can we make anything with this? And we're just like, and he always says us, like, yeah, we could try.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said no. I've always been like, this is great.
I can't imagine you ever saying no, like, just for anything that we've ever made, whether it just be like a little, like, voice memo of chords.
It's honestly crazy, too, because, so to give some background, before me and Alex met each other through another band that we were in for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years together.
3 sounds right.
And can you just put this over?
Yes.
Just so it doesn't fall. And I was playing drums, he was playing bass. There was a singer and guitarist, and that was a completely different dynamic. That band was more or less.
They had songs already, and we were playing the songs, and it was great. What are we drinking?
This is rum and coke, baby.
Cheers.
Well, it was also like. It was kind of unspoken, but I mean, it was the guitarist's band.
Every song was written by him, and they were great songs.
I'm not.
He was a good friend of ours.
I'm not knocking him for that, but
no,
it was just kind of like unspoken, like that. It was more or less his band.
Yes, it was all him, and he was a good songwriter. But with both of us, it was understood. It was just like we're just playing.
Well, yeah, but what I was gonna say was like, so before that, I've never collaborated with really anyone with the song before. Mm-hmm. And you just came up to me. You're like, hey, I had this idea for a riff for a song called "Doing Squats," about doing squats.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, let's fucking do it. Mm-hmm. But that was so interesting. And that song we recorded in one night, right? Like the first time we did it.
Yeah, that was one single night.
We did it in like 2 hours, 3 hours. Yeah. And for that first album we did together, we stuck with that. I think except for one song, and I think it was. Maybe Hey Sweet or the one with Mike.
Yes, that's right. Which one was that?
Yo Junior.
Yo Junior. Yes.
So like all those other songs were recorded with, like you said, you emailing me being like, "Hey, listen to this riff." I'm like, "Let's do it." Yeah. Us recording it in the span of 3 hours, 4 hours on Tuesdays.
And it was also, I think, the biggest thing about like the songs that we made. I think we made a point very specifically. It's not like they're going to be like punk, but like. Simple enough that they could be learned enough to do that.
I mean, that's the kind of approach you have to take when you're doing that, obviously, right? Like, all the song structures were extremely simple because while you might have been practicing them for weeks or months, for these, especially for that first album, I think you've had a couple that you were working on, right?
Yeah, I've been sitting on a lot.
I'm learning them for the first time when you come to record them. So obviously, it's like, you're kind of forced to keep the song structures really simple because I need to learn it on the spot and record a drum part within a reasonable number of takes. And obviously, very frustrating at certain points when we can't get a take that's usable.
Yeah. And yeah, we've had some that are simple, but the rhythm is so I don't want to say complex, but like so alien sometimes.
Alien's a good word for it.
Yeah. It's just if there's any other synonym. But like, yeah, honestly, that's the only hard part because that's the kind we like to challenge with is different rhythms. We've never had like any kind of like rhythm other than 4/4, but like the and that's right. That's
Baron said for a weekend have 3-song demo. Yeah, we should do something like that.
We should. That'd be great.
But what was I gonna say? Oh, like the alien part. What you just said really stuck out to me because to me, especially with your writing. Like, sometimes the way you write chord progressions and riffs is so alien to me, and it takes me, like, when I'm on the drums, that's not a big deal. Like, I don't have to follow chord progression, obviously, if I'm on drums. So, and by nature, I'm a drummer, right? So that's easy for me. But when it comes to writing other guitar parts or a keyboard part, your writing is so alien to me that it's so difficult for me to grasp onto it sometimes. Mm-hmm. And, like, to me, that's the challenge of it. That's, like, and for that, I have to like really rely on your judgment and me not being like, oh no, you need to change this. This sounds wrong or something. Which sometimes I do, but
yeah, I mean, very few times and this, where if I have the rhythm very set in my brain of like what I imagine going over a riff, I'll try to give you a little guidance of what I'm hearing, or at least the rhythm I'm hearing under it. I'll try to like show it to you. But other than that, like if I have the riff, I always let you do whatever on drums, and like I totally give you like all the control on that. at least for the most
You
part.
do give me pointers like for this that Seagull song. I was like, I could not come up with a part with all, and you were just like, why don't you try it? Boom, pop, pop. That's all it was, man.
Yeah,
and then, like it just clicked. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. That does sound better.
I think most of the time, and I think a lot of other people do this. Like if you don't want something that goes directly in the same rhythm as the riff, try the most like complementary thing next to it so it fits together like a puzzle piece. And that's not a new idea. Everybody's been doing that.
You know
for a
what
long
music
time.
is great for that?
Mm-hmm.
Like the meters, like
yes.
that type.
Great
the
example.
syncopation of the drums are always so complementary of the other instruments, and sometimes like the bass and the guitar are very complementary of each other like that, where it's like they're completely two different rhythms, but they're so complementary to each other, and they provide accent notes in right parts where they work together perfectly. What about you guys? Are most people watching write alone, write in bands, any duos, trios? I'd be interested, like what most people do.
You know, it's funny you even said that too. Like we talked about Can like at the beginning of this live stream.
Yeah.
That's how I view Can songs. I view a Can song almost like a building and the way those pieces are going together, because the bass is doing something always very, very weird with those drums. Like it's not a direct follow. Like it's almost like he hits the notes when there's like an empty space on the drums. And that's like what makes it so weird. Like how they build up that song.
Yeah.
Like they're very notable of what they're playing together, but they do not work like a normal.
Jacko, is that the drummer's name, right? Or
all I know is the bass player is crap. Somebody I'm failing.
I'm pretty sure the drummer's name is Jacko, but that dude's a machine.
Yes, very true.
For sure.
Yes.
Baron, I totally forgot that you were the Gherkins. I'm just like a total idiot, and I can't keep track of stuff like that. Do you find it more easy to come up with more different ideas with another writer than you do with your own? I don't think so. I think when I'm alone, I definitely, since I have full control, am able to do more, at least from my brain when I'm writing, more different things. Whereas when I'm writing with you, I almost have to alter what I'm going to suggest for, like,
so it makes sense to me.
So it makes sense to you. Yeah.
I get it, because also I think we need to say this right now. We are not trained. Yeah, sorry, bud. I get that.
Forever alone. Alone.
I gotta get out of here. But yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. None of us are classically trained that we could speak in like musician jargon, like that we couldn't say just like we know what a meter is, we know what a bar is, and that's as far as we can go. And like that's as far as we can communicate.
I do think that's really interesting you bring that up, because that's something I've been thinking about recently. And actually, when we were recording with Tim, a month or so ago, I brought up. I was like, we really need to start talking properly about what we're doing, because like we'll try. Tim's trying to teach us songs, and when you're not using proper terminology like stanzas, bars, chorus, verse, stuff like that, it gets so confusing. I was getting really frustrated, which was obvious, because I was like, we really need to start like learning how to speak properly, because I think it's really important when you're in a recording studio, and especially if you're paying. But I was just gonna say, even not paying, like when time is valuable, like time is valuable for all of us, especially as we're we have more responsibilities as we get older. Like time is valuable. Like I don't want to be fucking around and working on the same part over and over when it's just because we're confused at what we're talking about. That's why. So I do think it's really important to, when you're working with people, say the proper terms like bars, stanzas, whatever the case may be.
I think the most, let's say, knowledgeable or maybe even flowery that we will even get is using terms like staccato or legato. And we know what those terms could even mean, like the way that we have to play. That's as far as we can go with. Like,
I know. Wait, so you never played band in school, right?
I did. I was in jazz band.
Oh, you were?
I was in jazz band, and I learned saxophone in the 6th grade.
Oh, really? So
I was in classical band. I should. You're right. I should, but it's gone.
I still remember some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I can't. Oh, excuse me. I can't sight read anymore, unfortunately.
Oh God, I can a little bit. I can tell you a little bit.
I'm still obviously in the very beginning stage of me learning piano, but to be able to sight read on piano is such a gift. Imagine just being able to pick up any piano sheet music and start playing. Like, that's the goal.
Maybe Frank Zappa was right when he was telling all of his contemporaries, just like, you guys really got to learn how to play instruments, just like how he was telling everybody that.
Sometimes I feel like that.
Well, that's because like you're more well versed musically on a lot of things over here. You're a multi instrumentalist.
Well, not more than you.
But yeah, as far as like playing instruments, but at least you know like your way around recording stuff.
Yeah, I've definitely been in the room with people here, that were not ready to record. That'll be the nicest way to say it, right? So, in some cases, really bad. It's so frustrating when you're recording someone, whether you're playing with them or not, where they do not know the parts.
Oh God, there's nothing. You don't even have to be a producer to know that the guy that comes in the room that doesn't have his shit down is not going to be fun to work with.
The worst. I'm really calling out someone specific here. Right. Well, actually, no. It's actually there's a few people that can fit this role. They're definitely not watching this, so it's not a problem. But right. There's someone in particular that refused to want to learn notes on the neck for basic chord progressions.
Just the names of notes.
Like if you're playing guitar or bass, especially bass,
Sure.
If you don't know the first two strings, what root notes those are,
right,
and you refuse to learn because you're in a punk band and you don't think you need to learn, I'm sorry, but you're an asshole. You are an asshole.
Now that you just said bass, I know who you're talking about. I'm not going to say it.
Do you?
You told me about this person
a while
ago, so now it's very resonant in my
head.
Is
it clicking?
It's clicking, and we'll just leave it at that. No doxing here. No doxing. But you're right.
Yeah, exactly what we said. I was in a punk band with a guy who thought knowing any amount of theory would make him less punk.
Shitty.
It was really hard for me to find people to play music with and jam with growing up, and there was someone in college where I found this kid who played guitar, and he's like, yeah, let's jam. And he knew someone who played bass, and he was a fucking jazz major.
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm cursing like I normally do. But
no, because we're getting heated.
He was a jazz major, and he literally said, like, oh, like, I wouldn't play rock. Like, that's beneath me.
Just refused to play with you?
What a dickhead. Like, dude, fuck off. Like, also, like, when you go to jam, like, you don't have to play rock. Like, you could really play anything. Yes. And as long as it's a groove, I'll be able to follow along.
And it's also, like, how less versatile are you than, like, you just, like, oh, I refuse to play rock. Like, bet you can't. Like, do that. Just, like, I bet you can't.
It would probably be the busiest thing in the world.
The jazz major. Oh, dude, the Jazz Majors would be a great punk band name. A shitty punk band. Because they're jazz majors. I love that. That's a good idea. Mario, I think I've told you your story that's very akin to one that you just had when I was in college. I went to college for art, and I was friends with some of the band kids. And they invited me in, and I had my bass. And, like, they were all jazz kids. And, yes, crust punk immediately, just, like, dirty. They invited me in, and they set up. I had my stuff set up, and immediately, like before they started playing, they all said like, "All right, we're gonna start doing this and this and this," like all musical words,
Mixolydian scale to the seventh and the second.
Yeah, exactly. And the second I asked them, like, "Oh, sorry, what's that mean?" I'm not kidding. The whole room went silent. And there were 5 people, and they stared at me so hard. The silence was deafening.
Yo, it's so funny.
And one girl was just like, "You don't know what that means?" It was like I offended them. And I was like, I still played, but I felt like they wanted to ask me to leave so bad. It was like, I always remember that. That's very akin to what you were saying.
I think
squares, exactly.
This story to me brings up something I think is really important with music, and from a communal aspect of building relationships, of
very much,
because that's what music really is, right? From like a true caveman chords, like connection with people, right?
Drum circles,
stuff like that, right? I think it's really important to be welcoming and open with people, because I've been in plenty of situations when I was learning how to be a good musician and to jam with people where people were just really shitty. And, especially when someone's young and the person telling you that it's older, or you're playing with older people, like middle-aged people, like, that when people are shitty to you, that really hurts. And, there's 2 ways to say something. Like, the amount of times, like I was saying before, that I was recording someone here that had no idea what they was doing, I'd never belittled that person.
No.
I would never mean to them, but I was.
Because you won't get anything out
But
of it.
I was real with them, and I was
Yeah.
like, you really should practice this next time so we don't go through this again. Now, you have to be honest, people.
Yes.
But there's a fine line of being. This is obviously applicable to every aspect in life, but like I said, I think it's particularly really important with music, just because in my own personal experience, I've had that shitty experience with people.
Yeah. And you remember it, and you remember just like, I'm not going to make another person feel like that.
I remember in high school, the only kid who played guitar in high school was like, okay, yeah, come over and jam. And I jammed with him, and this other kid played bass. And we played for a little bit. At the end of it, and he was like, well, you're better than I was expecting, at least.
Just like,
it was just like,
fucking asshole.
and I was like, oh, so like, can we jam again? He was like, no, like, I don't think like we're gonna jam again. Like,
he was doing you a favor.
Honestly, I was not that bad. Like, I was able to keep a steady beat.
Yes.
Maybe I wasn't as flashy as he wanted to be, but I was still able to keep a steady beat. You know what I mean? So it was just like, there's egos and stuff like that. So.
You know what's funny too is like, and anybody that grew up playing an instrument like in high school, it's when you start doing that, and it's also the time that you're playing, you're finding the stuff that you kind of like identify yourself with. Like, it's so funny when you're a musician, like your personality becomes so entwined with the music that you like growing up, especially in America, that like that happens way too much, that like the idea of you deviating to do anything else is like so like bad in your brain. Like so many kids growing up, like when you're trying to find people to play with in high school, do that constantly.
That's so boring too, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. But again,
especially like when we jam, I mean, like obviously over our recorded songs are more our style, but even when we just jam, like we are very eclectic with what we're playing, what style, whatever.
Very much so.
Do you remember when we used to go on like our jazz runs when we were in the Growling Hounds? When we were just me and you.
Yes, those were fun.
Yeah, like those were fun.
Those were very fun. Or specifically, you know what I always loved jamming out with you, man, was when we would we were usually pretty quick setting up before shows, and like if our other two members were like setting up, we would kind of launch into an impromptu thing that was not.
We did?
At least in.
I don't remember that.
We started. I remember once in Boonton. We did it once, and it was very fun. And
Boontoons.
Yeah, a great venue that is now gone, R.I.P. here in Jersey. But we did it once, and it was very, very fun. That it was just so off the cuff and just like unexpected. That I love that little vibe that we were able to create in that one little moment. It was very, very good. It was just for creating something out of nothing.
I'm going to answer, where did your love of using all analog gear start?
I would like to know this myself.
That's a kind of a complicated question because, well, I shouldn't say complicated. It's more multifaceted. From the beginning of when I started recording at all, I started with analog stuff. So it was never like something where I was like, oh, I like this better than this. I just started that way. And it really wasn't anything more than it just strictly interested me more as a person. And not even from a musical aspect, just from what my own interests are, my other hobbies, and like my career. Like, I went to school for mechanical engineering. A tape machine is like the perfect, if you're into music, like the perfect encapsulation of someone who's a mechanical engineer. Like moving parts, moving medium, gearing, stuff like that. Like it just interests me as a person. So like tape machines, when I first had the idea of starting to record, that was just my natural path of, oh, let's get a tape machine because tape machines are awesome. It was never like I started recording and was like, oh, I like the sound of analog gear more. It was never like that. It was also a fact of the music I was listening to was all recorded on analog gear. None of it was recorded, before consumer computers existed at all, right? So there was no, at least for like 99.9% of the music I listened to, that's the case.
Very true.
Just strictly because of the eras of music I listened to. So because of that, it's kind of like, I love it from the, I don't want to say historical aspect, but like, for example, like if it's like, man, I love the Beatles. It's like, man, you might want course, I'm having a brain fart and a little drunk, but you might want a U47. That's what I'm trying to say. If you love the Beatles, you might want a U47 microphone, right? Because you want to sound like the Beatles did on Please Please Me. So you get a U47 microphone. It's kind of the same idea, right? It's like all these musicians I love that were recording on tape in the 60s and 70s and 50s, whatever era. It's like, why wouldn't I want to do it like them?
Yeah.
Like, they're my idols. I want to do it just like they did it.
And it has more weight in the when you're listening to it, and that's really when it comes down to when you're a real audiophile, that you can tell specifically what was used just by hearing it and developing your ear.
To be fair, I can't do that.
Really?
And I also think a lot of that is bullshit.
Mm-hmm. You think
because
so?
I 100% think so. Because there's plenty of things that I recorded that weren't on tape, that were just either using the Alesis or when I had the Model 24, or I still have it, but when I was using the Tascam Model 24 a lot, people would just assume it was recorded on tape because there was a shit ton of saturation from like my Shure microphone mixers, and I was just pushing levels really hard, so there was distortion, saturation, and people just assumed all of my stuff was on tape. So that's part of the reason why I say it's bullshit. At least to an extent. There's obviously some differences, obviously. But for the most part, when most people are talking about it, they're just talking out of their ass. Mm-hmm. And me and him met someone that perfected. When I say perfected, I don't think you could get closer to mimicking a 1970s recording sound. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I'm actually blanking.
The person we're talking about before with the number 6 guitar.
Yep, you're right. Now it's
this kid had he went through trial and error with gear, microphone placement, guitars, amps. He told me like his process of getting where he needed to be, and it wound up just being a plug-in that he used. If you remember, he was like, I don't even use all this expensive gear that I bought. I just use a plug-in, a universal audio plug-in. And to my ear, it sounded identical to Led Zeppelin recordings. Identical.
Nice.
But, so like, that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of it is just bullshit. It's very hard to mimic artists specifically, too. Like, if you go into it saying, I want to sound like The Who, I want to sound like Jimi Hendrix, you're never, ever going to get it. Besides, like I said, he was the only person I've ever heard where I was like, wow, that's exact. Because mostly, a lot of the times, it's the sound you're trying to replicate has nothing to do with the gear. It has to do with the musicians. Mm-hmm. Strictly the musicians.
Very true, but I think also you get very good stuff if you go into it like, I want a sound that replicates this artist, but I want to put my own creativity on top of that. Then you get something kind of cool, and that's when you get a real nice little creature that comes out. I've tried to mimic artists plenty of times, and I have failed every single time, and it always turns into something brand new.
Something brand new that sounds nothing like that. That's like
Do you remember the plugin he was using?
The top-notch universal audio plugins. They were probably some emulation of a tape machine, if I were to guess. It was really nothing special. It was really, also keep in mind, his recording setup, even though it was in a home, it was professional level recording setup. He built that room specifically for recording. So it was proper acoustics, proper padding, proper size room. Everything was fine-tuned. So that's also a huge aspect of getting a studio recording sound, right? So that's 90% of the battle right there, is getting that studio sound in a room that's acoustically treated and stuff like that. Specifically getting a dated sound, I mean. You know what I mean? Because like, you're never going to get a 60s, 70s recording sound because, that stuff was recorded in, EMI studios. You know what I mean? It's like top of the notch quality recordings.
Very true.
Unless you're trying to go for some like 60s garage rock, then that's different. But for the most case, that's the case.
Yeah. We want to say what our favorite Hendrix song is.
Oh boy. Favorite Hendrix song.
I might have to just go with Red House. I mean, it's not like one of the bigger ones, but nonetheless, like that's my favorite for me. I'm not the world's biggest Hendrix guy. Of course I love him, but just like it's not something I usually come back to. But like if I do, it's usually Red House.
I would say definitely Fire.
Sure.
Just because Mitch Mitchell, that song, I mean, to me that song was a pivot point, one of the many pivot points in rock and roll drumming, for sure. He plays drums as a lead instrument in that song, which is very rare for the time. And literally when I was beginning to play drums, that song was like, I had to learn how to play that song. Like similar to John Bottom, Good Times, Bad Times, first song, self-titled record. Within the first 10 seconds, that was another pivotal point in rock and roll drumming that would just change forever. So like Good Times, Bad Times, Fire by Jimi Hendrix, all like, those are just good examples. I can think of a bunch of others, but we're not going to go there. You guys dig Dan Electro guitars, basses. You probably have more opinions on that.
I really like Dan Electro guitars. When I was younger, I was really, really hungry for a lot of that kind of stuff. Every time I would go to Guitar Center when I was about 14, when I was on an enormous kick of the White Stripes, like I would gravitate towards those Dan Electros with the lipstick pickups that like were getting way more hyped at that era. I always gravitated towards that. But yeah, not so much. I mean, I got my Silvertone that I use all the time right now. But yeah, Dan Electros are good if you're looking for that kind of tone.
Unfortunately, when I look at guitars, like 99.9% of my opinion is like, do I like how that looks? Does that look cool? And Dan Electros look dope for the most part. Sometimes I'm like, that's too much. That's too much Dan Electro. But they're always, the weird ones look cool.
Oh, absolutely. They're those perfect little pawn shop looking guitars that I think we talk about all the time, you and me, that I can't get enough of. But for me, Teisco is king for the weird looking pawn shop style that I'm always looking for that real garage kind of shitty, like kind of tone that like it's got a natural twang.
That's like
bring out the big boy. There we go.
For the short boy. It's a short scale.
That's right.
This thing. You call it a Teisco, but technically it is unbranded completely.
Makes it even better. The unbranded ones.
It's just made in Japan. Somewhere it says made in Japan.
Yeah,
this thing
is. It can't be from anywhere else. Maybe Taiwan.
I gotta be honest. This thing is pretty bad.
Yeah, but that's what that's what we want.
There are so many dead frets, and it's amazing. I went as long as I did without getting another bass.
Hey, yeah, I mean, you're authentic, man. Like, you got it for specifically.
It's also just like, dude, I love that bass. You know what I mean? Like, it was my first bass.
Sure,
like,
you want to lose it.
That was actually when I first decided to start writing my own music and learn on something else besides drums. I went to bass before I went to guitar. And that was my first avenue into, like, songwriting, was that bass right there.
Very nice.
And it was all because I had a bass riff in my head. And I was like, I need to, I got to make that into a song. I got to make it.
Sure. I mean, like, what's that, those hyper cheap Squire Broncos that are like, you could buy a used one for
I don't even know what that is.
Swear to God, they're like a one pickup bass that it's the cheapest thing Squire will ever make. I swear you can buy a used one for $50. And they're like, if just to like have a bass on it.
Probably just does what you need it to do.
Does what you need. Does what you need.
Oh my lord. Yeah, that bass is so bad. There's a bunch of dead frets. The pickup, like volume switches, like just the electronics in general were just so bad. So yeah, I was glad to get another one.
Hells yeah.
I have 3 of those Tascam 22-2s and a 22-4, the decks I had as a kid. You know what's funny? So I went to go buy this off Craigslist, some dude in Brooklyn, and I get there, and I brought tapes to play on it to make sure it worked. It was completely destroyed when I got there. And I was like, hey man, like, I can't even get the reels on. Like, basically what happened was I realized at some point it was on a shelf like this, and it had fallen straight on its face, and everything was destroyed, completely bent out of shape. I literally couldn't even get the reel onto the hub because the spindle in the middle was so bent. And I was like, hey man, like, you said this thing worked. Like, I can't even get a tape on it. you know, I'm not gonna. He wanted like I think like $150, $200, something like that.
That's not bad.
And I was like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, it sucks that I came all the way here. You know, like I'm not interested. And I was like, I'd be willing to give you like a for parts price, you know. And he thought about it. Like, to be fair, he seemed genuinely confused that it had been bent. He was like, this isn't my machine. My friend gave it to me. He had a studio. So he wasn't trying to like fuck me over. So I should just mention that. But I offered him $50 and I was like, I might sell it for parts. I'll never be able to fix it. I was like, you know, $50, like I have if you're offended by that, by all means. But he was like, nah, it's fine. Take it, $50.
Yeah.
I spent a week taking this thing apart, putting it back together, taking all of the levers and bending them, going to my in my garage and using a hammer to bend it straight, replacing springs, lubing it up, legitimately a full week of time. And electronically, I've never gotten it to record 100% correctly. When I pass a 16 kilohertz tone to it, it's the left or the right channel, I forget which one at this point, but was completely inoperable. But anyway, that all being said, it somehow worked. It somehow has been a tank ever since. So I love that thing. I would love to have another one just as a parts machine, or make this one my parts machine. You know, I'm still in contact with that guy.
Really?
I don't know why you got that out, but
Why do you think?
as a question.
Yeah, specifically to this.
But anyway, just before we get to that,
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to get another one. You like the 22-4? Because like if I see one of those, I'll probably buy it just because I know these things are goddamn tanks. It literally fell on its face and I got it to work. I'll look at the other questions while you show that. What are the questions? Oh, okay. Yeah, you can show that. Yeah. So
yes, we freaking dig it.
Did you get me this as a gift?
I think.
No.
It wasn't me.
Someone else got me this as a gift.
Mhm.
I've actually only listened to it probably twice all the way through, and I really like it. I really like it. There's no reason why I haven't listened to it more. You know, some of the versions I definitely prefer, just because I love the garage. The Tascam. Oh my god. 38. Oh my god, I'm forgetting. Tascam 38. You know, the 8-track. I'm forgetting now, but 338 I think it is. But anyway. What was I saying?
Where are we going to go from here? Like before Tyson, we were just talking about Tascam.
I was looking at a question. Mary, how long have you been playing guitar/bass? You started off as a drummer, right? Yeah, I started playing drums when I was young. I didn't take it seriously until I was like maybe in high school. Guitar and bass, I think like 4 years ago, like right before COVID hit. So whenever that is, like 2019, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I guess like 5 years at this point.
I mean, you were playing like by the time I met you. You had a
no.
Really? You didn't even touch it?
No. When I first joined the band with you, I was only playing drums for a long time, for majority of that.
Okay.
I only started writing after the singer left.
Right. Okay. Just like, and you would start doing your very own stuff after that, just like to create it. Yeah, I was literally like tone deaf in that band. Like, really? I could not tell the difference between notes. Like I was starting from scratch, basically, being in like a band like that. That was a good thing you were a drummer. Yeah, that's why I was a drummer, right? Yeah, for real, man. I've heard many drummers say that are multi-instrumentalists. They start with drums because it makes the most sense in their brain. For every multi-instrument, the thing I see the most, present company included, that is missing from my personal taste. When I'm listening to someone who's a multi-instrumentalist's material, and they ask me, not you specifically, but when people ask me like, oh, like what is this missing? What does it need? It's 100% of the time for me. Those are sampled drums. You need to put some real drums in there. It would sound so much better, even if it's something really simple. And that's so much different for me, that like with the stuff the funny stuff that I like show you of like the really weird stuff. I love artificial drums because I want them specifically very wonky, very akin to like the early Ween stuff, like the early Resident stuff, like something really wonky, like, and of course like Ariel Pink included, because
Yeah.
I want it weird and
Mhm.
lo-fi. But that's typically what I want when I show
Yeah.
that stuff. But that's just me.
Yeah, that's a very specific sound. If you want that sound, that's what you gotta do.
Yeah, you gotta do
Simple as
it.
that.
I love whenever I need like an artificial beat. There's nothing weirder than using my Casio SK1, which is the sample keyboard where you just talk into it and it samples it, and you get the weirdest lo-fi sounds coming out of that, and it's so crunchy and gritty. I love that. It's so good. We'll use that on some of our songs in the future. We'll have you not on drums at all. Just those little bleeps and bloops,
Yeah.
those little chirps.
That'd be fun. That would certainly be a challenge for me,
Oh, can you imagine that?
mentally and physically.
Yes. You put drums over.
Like, are you sure you don't want a snare drum?
Yep, just like that. That'd be good.
Yeah, I don't know. I love the drums. Obviously, I'm a drummer, so
Yeah,
it's hard for, even when I write my own songs. There's some songs where I'm like, this probably would be better without drums, but I can't help myself.
Yeah, like you've never had an acoustic song you've ever recorded though, like that never needed drums or anything, right?
They at least have. I have done them, but they at least have some percussion. Like if I'm not on a drum set, I'm hitting a drum just to keep a driving beat going. It's a steady rhythm, which I kind of like stole that from Mac DeMarco.
Okay.
He has a couple songs. I can't think of which specific ones at this time, but where it's just like it sounds like he's just beating on a very muffled drums with towels, just keeping a steady rhythm.
He's the king of that, of the very muffled drum sound, especially in like the later stuff, like This Old Dog and Cowboy, like and that kind of stuff. He loves. You could just hear the dampening of those drums on there.
I've said it before 1,000 times, you probably, but Cowboy.
See, they're memorable. They're memorable songs, but they are definitely not his best. So I can accept.
I honestly, when he came out that album, I was disappointed. To be fair, like This Old Dog, I didn't hate, but I wasn't in love with either.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of in the same.
Here Comes the Cowboy. I was really disappointed with, and I haven't listened to anything new for him, so I don't even know if it's good, it's bad.
Well, he's taking a break now, so like, he's essentially like off the grid. No, he's trying to like.
What? Sorry.
No, I don't know.
What is the SK1 sample pack? You know what that is?
The sample pack. I'm not sure. I'm not well versed on the Casio stuff, but I just use it for my own sampling. For gear, you're asking the wrong guy, and I apologize. But
you know, I have been I need to finally do this because I've been telling myself for probably about a decade, more than that, probably more than a decade, I'm gonna buy a new cowbell because I have this was the one and only cowbell I've ever bought, and it's just like an LP. It's a very Latin type of sound. And it does not lend itself well to rock music at all. Like I've played on people's drum sets that have like a traditional classic rock metal cowbell, and I'm like, oh my god, this sounds so much better than that. This is not meant for a drum set. This is more like a percussion, yeah.
Will Ferrell style.
And it's literally like I gotta spend like the $30 and get a quality one, but I've just never done it.
I mean, yeah, we use that a fair amount with what we use. So sometimes, like I can name quite.
I know, but it's because it's the only choice I have.
Yes, very true, very very true.
It's the one hits for the Casio drums. It's the one hits for the Casio drums. What do you use it with? I'm confused. Is this a machine? Is this one of those cards?
In this area, guys.
I'm a dumbass.
Yeah, ditto.
Might get from a distance with a ribbon. For the cowbell, I'm trying to think how I normally. The number of times I've used a cowbell in a song is so small that I can't even think of how I recorded one in the past.
You just had it like over your whole.
Unless I'm playing, have I in any of our songs? Am I on the drum kit? Am I using a cowbell?
I can think of a few.
Oh, really?
I can't at the moment, but I know that you've hit it quite a few times with stuff that we've made together.
I definitely try it a lot, but I often error against it.
Mm-hmm.
Sequencers, samplers, drum machines, and use a yarn mallet. Oh, for the cowbell. I'm looking at two different people. A yarn mallet. Yeah, I gotta buy a yarn mallet too, because that's I really like to, as an effect, a sound effect, ride the ride cymbal as like separate from my drum kit track. as like a build up to a spot. I've done that on a few songs, just to build tension when it comes to reaching your point, like kind of like I've definitely used it on the count, like for that scary horror type of sound. So I want a yarn mallet because I've been using bass drum beaters and they're obviously not ideal. They're like this short. You're like, you can't get a good sound out of it, but I make it work. You know what I mean?
Mallets with drums, I always thought were so cool. Every single time that the Velvet Underground were always known for using that with Mo Tucker using mallets on that, and they had like such a great like driving sound that was almost like just not, how should I say, it's like a march.
I was listening to Velvet Ground and Nico the other day. I was driving from upstate, so it's just like listening to a bunch of albums, and that's one that I haven't put on in years. And I've listened to that album countless times, and the two songs that I think changed music, if I could pick off that album, is "I'm Waiting for My Man,"
of course,
and "Heroin."
Big time. The two
I
big
don't
ones
think,
were notable.
Like when I was listening to that album, it was mostly in high school and in college, and this was before I was recording and songwriting. Before I was songwriting, I should say. The recording part's not important, but from a songwriting perspective, like obviously, "I'm Waiting for a Man" is very monotone, repetitive, but it works so well.
Yes,
"Heroin's" extremely experimental, and from like a songwriting perspective, I've never truly appreciated that song until I was listening to it over the weekend. I was like, dude, it's been so long since I listened to this. Like, this is like an art piece. Like, it could have this album could have just been that song.
That's a single. Yeah, it's what they do so well in Heroin. I've never heard a song lure you in with sweetness on the riff, because when it starts, he did what he set out to do, was make an audio version of what it feels like to be on heroin, of like, it starts out very sweet. He wants you to feel calm with those two chords he's just playing and the viola in the background. It is so comforting and sweet hearing it until like it really kicks in and your heart rate increases. Like, he nailed it, like with Lou Reed on
completely
that.
Nailed it.
It's beautiful at the beginning, though.
Is $200 too much to pay for a 365A? Yeah, it is. Excuse me, but if you're strictly looking on eBay, one, I would wait out for a cheaper price, but two, you're not going to get a deal you're looking for. I would definitely look on Craigslist, because the 365As. Wait. Oh, no, I'm thinking of something. I'm thinking of a goddamn compressor. You're talking about for an EV 635. Wait, 365A. What are you talking about? Because now I'm confused. 365A.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, you have to clarify 365A. Are you talking about 635A, an EV? Because if you're paying $200, that's way too much. So please clarify what you're talking about. When are you going to do a cover of "What a Way to Die"? What song is that? "What a Way to Die"?
I'm already out. I can't tell you. Please enlighten us, sir.
"What a Way to Die." Typo. So 635A you're talking about? Oh, dude, yeah. You're asking for that. $200 is way too much money. I personally wouldn't pay more than $30 for that mic. Like I said, if you're just looking on eBay and you want it at the moment, you're not paying $30. You have to wait. That's just how it goes, baby. But like I said, I would also look other places other than eBay, because that's probably where you're looking. Check Facebook Marketplace. And also, when you're buying really any dynamic microphone like that, try to get one that's listed as for repair or parts, because most of the time people have one, they found it in their goddamn attic, they have no idea how to tell if it works, and they sell it for parts or repair on eBay. And there's not much to go wrong in those mics and dynamic microphones at all. So take a gamble and buy one for super cheap. It's probably going to work, or you might just have to do some minor soldering. You know what I mean? Maybe wrap some tape around it. I don't know what he's talking about. What are you talking about, Chuck? I think I saw a Shure 664A in one of your videos. What do you use it on? That microphone I've been using a lot recently. And I actually saw another one for sale when me and him went to a guitar show, if you remember. And I was like, do I buy it?
I remember you were fighting.
I was fighting
hard,
with it.
And it looked good, man.
And the guy, he was giving me a great deal. And I was like, nah, I'm trying to save money. What a mistake. I should have bought that.
Every single guy in that entire room was doing just like that exact thing of like, do I need this?
Yeah,
do I really need
that's what happened.
Yeah, dude, at a garage sale. Was that a church we were at?
It was in a church. Yeah.
How much was it, Mario?
How much? They were asking, the guy was asking $40, I think $40 for the mic and the cable. That is a steal just for the cable. Just for this. This has like a 4-pin cable. 4-pin. Just the cable alone was worth $40. I'm an idiot for not buying it. I'm literally an idiot. But what do I use it on? To answer that question, I've realized I've always used this on. I use it occasionally on bass drum, but lately I haven't been using a bass drum mic at all. For like the past 2 years, I haven't been using one. I use this all the time on electric guitar amps just because the sound is just perfect. I don't have to do much to it. It's just what I need. It comes with its own stand. Well, I shouldn't say that. I have a dedicated stand for it. It doesn't come with its own stand, but I have it constantly on the stand, so it's perfect. Putting it right next to a guitar amp, it's at the right level. But two, what I realized recently is that the rejection on this microphone from outside sources, the directionality of the cardioid pickup pattern, is better than any microphone that I have. When I have this on a guitar amp, 10 feet from my drum set, if I position it correctly, you cannot hear the drums at all. Unless you solo it, and you can kind of hear it in the back. It's amazing. I can't believe it. I'm telling you, this mic is the greatest for that.
I've heard you talk very highly of that mic any other time that we've been recording. You usually put it, do you put it on the valve? Like whenever we use that? Or am I dreaming that?
You use it sometimes I do, yeah.
You use it on the Fender, right?
Yeah, I use it on both of the amps, yeah. But recently we were recording, and I said out loud, like, wow, I can't believe how much I can't hear the drums on it, if you remember that. Because the rejection on this. So whenever I've been doing live sessions with the guitarist and, me on drums, I've been turning to this one recently. That's different from my usual approach of using the EV635A. It's an omnidirectional, and I've just been kind of dealing with the bleed. But lately, this is the one.
It's a special boy. Sorry, I can't add much for the technical gear, guys.
Yeah, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, I'm just fucking sitting here like your little ventriloquist dummy.
We will check out Pleasure Seekers. What a way to die. Pleasure Seekers.
Yeah, when this is done, we'll give that a listen, bro. Like,
I feel like it's going to be one of those songs where I'm like, oh, I know this song.
Yeah, it's going to hit our ears.
Is that 60s garage rock? Transient designer on rooms. Take the tack off. Turn up the sustain. And then distort the shit out of them. Mix down and blend it with the original. For the whole... Paul, you're talking about for the whole mix? Cool. Some lady had one on the marketplace for $250, but the price is too much. Yeah. You're talking about $250 for the EV664A or the EV635A. Either way, too much. Either way. What are the Shure microphone mixers for? Those are really for just saturation and pushing levels. When I first started recording, I was really into kind of like Ty Segall, King Gizzard, the OCs type of stuff. And that is a great way to get saturation and distortion. So I was using that kind of as like a color box. I didn't even know it at the time. I didn't realize what I was doing, but that's basically what I was doing. I didn't realize why I liked it so much when I would put my microphone up to that. And that's just because the headroom on these, just like the Space Echo, is so low that it's like, if you're playing drums, especially with all the transients, you're peaking all the time on it. Guitars as well, unless you're doing like a distorted sound. So it's peaking a lot with that. You're getting a lot of saturation. And I didn't realize it at the time. I just love that sound.
Yeah.
What are your favorite vocal mics? I try a lot of different options. Sure, SM57 classic rock mic. If you're just doing like bland, I shouldn't say bland. That's a bad word. Standard rock, you can't really go wrong. SM57, maybe 6 inches to a foot away. You'll find a way to make that work. I've been using my ribbon microphone a lot recently, and I've been liking that. It has much more natural sound. You would definitely have to be backed farther away from that microphone, I found. The transients come in hot. There's a lot of proximity effect with the ribbon mic, so you have to be careful. I also really like the EV635A on vocal mics just because I like that microphone on everything. So use it. So yeah, 60G's rock. So I definitely know that song because I know the band name Pleasure Seekers.
It sounds extremely familiar. Yeah. It's going to hit us immediately when we hear it, that it's going to be like, oh, that song. Because we send each other like garage rock songs of a billion different types all the time, just like to show us like different stuff, or just like kind of like to flex a little bit of like the more underground stuff all the time, to like see what we can find in like rock history. So if you're teaching us something new, we'll take that.
Yeah, for sure. If you had to pick an overdrive pedal for a guitar, what would it be?
The Boss overdrive is very nice.
What I would say, this is kind of like a non-answer, but I really like the treble booster I have, which is just a Texas Rangemaster clone. If I could, which I've been telling myself I'm going to do, I'm going to make a version of that pedal that's not the treble booster part. It's just the booster part, which is just a really easy modification to make. You just change one capacitor and it makes it an overdrive rather than a treble booster. I think if I did that, I'd probably like that more than everything, because I love the treble booster. Just sometimes it's obviously a lot of treble, so it's just like too much, and it's really harsh sometimes. So that's what I probably like the best for overdrive. Are Omni mics good for vocals? I found them very good for vocals, especially when you're having a vocalist that's moving around a lot, because there's no one directionality, right? You can move all around the mic. There's no proximity effect. And also, if you're in a room where bleed is inevitable, where that you're doing a vocal mic live in a room, sometimes it's beneficial just to use the omnidirectional mic, deal with the bleed, and don't have the colored signal if you're using a directional mic such as an SM57 or something like that, because that off-axis sound is going to have some coloration because of the frequency pickup pattern. So sometimes like omnidirectional is just nice for that reason. But it's really going to depend on the vocalist, because there's so many delivery styles, so many vocal ranges that it's hard to pinpoint a microphone that's going to work on everyone. Love the whole Dirty New Jersey album. Was that just you two?
What do we want to say about that one?
I mean, yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay, good. So we can actually say it out loud right now, that all those...
You know, I always wondered, like, because a couple of the comments I got, or we got, I couldn't tell if people knew or not.
We had a lot of people ask, like, oh my God, you guys, like, thank you for, like, doing all these bands. So, like
me listening to it, it's so obvious it's
because
just
it's us, and we did it all. It's our voices. But, yeah, we were totally unsure. Like, when we put it out, just, like, are people immediately going to know that it's us? And, like, we so thought that, but then the response we got, like, took us by surprise.
We should mention that 2 of those songs have John Mullen on vocals and guitar.
Yeah.
Right? So,
was he the only guest?
Yeah. He was the only guest.
Yeah, that's right.
How was the patch bay connected? So, I don't know if it was you or someone else who recently commented on one of my videos asking me about patch bays and stuff. And I could do a video on that. It's just I've actually been meaning to, because I get people asking me a lot how to connect stuff to an analog mixer, but that's such an open-ended topic that I don't know how to attack a video like that. It's like asking someone, hey, explain to me a chess game. It's like, well, the chess game there's 1,000 billion different combinations the way a chess game could go, right? So it's kind of the same with the patch bays. Right now I have 2 patch bays. This top one is just a straight patch bay. I have it connected to various gear over here. The one below it is a normalized patch bay. I'm not going to explain in this live stream what that means, but if you know what that means, bottom is normalized. So there's there's a few crucial things I have normalized. For example, the stereo channel for my mixer is normalized, and I have that constantly connected to my stereo compressor down here. So I constantly have the stereo mix down in line with the stereo compressor. And if I want to take those out, I can always take it out, and it's the normalized connection. I am losing my voice and I'm getting hungry.
I was just about to say we're at about an hour and a half, and I would say that's a very good time.
Yeah. So if you guys have some questions, we'll take a couple questions, and then I have to end because I'm losing my voice.
Of course.
Am I screaming?
Nah, dude, you're fine.
It's just constantly talking.
No,
is that what it is?
Talking, you just level out. I think, did you answer the last one right there?
So how much do you worry about phase relationships when running multi-mics? So I have no ability to change the phase on this mixer, which is probably the biggest detriment to this mixer, that you can't do that. So establishing phase during my initial recording setup is really important. And I have kind of a normal setup that I replicate most of the times, especially for my drums, that I know is going to sound good. And if I need to adjust slightly upon test recording, I'll adjust slightly. But I really don't think about phase relationships too much, just because most of the time I'm close miking stuff in the room. And really, when you're close miking, you don't need to think about phase relationships too much. I have a whole video on this. Ain't going to get into why, but as long as you're close miking stuff and you're following the 3-to-1 rule, you most likely won't have problems. So I don't really think about it that much. Have you ever considered doing a stereo mix of distorted proportions? How dare you ask me something like that? Ridiculous. Sounds like the rum is kicking in. Yeah, I think it is. I have to pee so bad right now, too.
Yeah, that's why you want to end this. Last one.
How many mics on drums usually? Usually, recently, it's been 2. One front of kit mic, which is just my ribbon microphone, either 3 feet to 6 feet in front of my drums, and then a snare mic. Lately, I've been departing from my usual EV635A omnidirectional mic. I've been using an RE18 a lot, which is a super cardioid microphone. Both I haven't really found a need for a bass drum microphone anymore. That front ribbon microphone gives me so much bass drum that the bass drum mic just has become irrelevant. I should try to use a batter side bass drum mic to get more attack, because my bass drums are always buried so deep in the mix. And, by putting it on the batter side, I'd probably be able to get that attack I'm looking for. I just haven't tried it yet, honestly. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I gotta
pee. For having me, man.
I'm hungry.
As well as me.
Yeah.
It's about time.
It's about time.
It's about time.
Well, I'm glad you guys tuned in.
Night, everybody.
Hopefully you learned a thing or two. That's it.
Take care.
Peace.